Welcome to the Sonny Carton Show. February 25th, Friday, beautiful 3 p.m. Let's get right into it. Make sure to like the stream and subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell on YouTube at UStadium to be notified whenever UStadium has new content. You could also find UStadium on Twitter and Instagram, and make sure to follow me on Twitter over at Scarton Radio. That's spelled S Carton Radio. And let's get into it because we got another great one for you guys today. There's a lot going on coming out of the All-Star break. We got a lot to get to. So this week, we're going to start off with the temperature check. Normally, temperature check, I give you guys a few teams that are hot, a few teams that are trending cold. But because there's only been one game since last week's episode coming into the All-Star break, we figure it might as well just give a little bit of a recap of All-Star weekend. What happened? How are we feeling? Any surprises? Anything like that? So let's get right into it, starting with KarlAnthony Towns. This man, a few months ago, said that he considers himself to be the greatest shooter at the big man position in NBA history. People heard him say that, and they're like, wait a minute. You're just going to skip over a guy like Dirk? You're not even going to give that guy the presence of mind to say that he's already passed him as the best shooter ever? But then, what can you do to back up that statement that you're the best big man shooter ever? Maybe go into All-Star weekend and win the three-point competition against a bunch of guards? I think that might do it. That might be a pretty good example of showing that you think you're the best shooter ever. So I was really happy for Kat. It's been something that he said publicly he wanted to take part in for a long time now. And him finally getting to do it and win it was pretty awesome to see. So I wasn't complaining from that standpoint. Another thing that happened in All-Star Weekend was the new Rising Stars format. And this is something that I love to watch because in the past, obviously, they used to do the rookies versus sophomores. And that was interesting because you got a little bit of the dynamic like, oh, all the rookies are friends together. Some of the sophomores are friendly. So they play each other. It's a nice little competition. And then they went to something which I liked even more, which was USA versus the world. And I think that's the one that most of you will become familiar with over the past few years because you got to see the guys like Luka and all of them team up on the European side of things. And then you get to see the U.S. stars, the guys that were homegrown here, and those guys that grew up playing AAU together battle it out. So you get to watch middle school highlights of guys throwing lobs together. And now in the NBA, they're doing the same thing, and it's awesome to see. So that was a cool format. But this year, they changed it up. They had some all-time great captains like Gary Payton, James Worthy, some other guys in there to really get the competition going between the all-time greats. And then you have a pool of players to be drafted from that. So now no longer is it specifically world versus USA or sophomore versus rookie, but instead guys get to draft teams and select the guys they like. Now, the other thing that I like that they did was they added in some of the G League dudes like Scoot Henderson to try to hold their own against the young guys in the league. Thank you, Trista. Love the Randall jersey. Got it. Seeing a guy like Scoot Henderson, who has not been in college, went straight from high school to the G League at 17 years old, compete against the young guys in the league today was fascinating. I mean, this dude is so young. What he's doing against guys like Cade, and against guys like LaMelo on the court with him, it's really impressive. And a guy like that who's shown he can already compete in the G League just shows that a few more years, a little bit more improvement, put on some more weight, and he should be right next to those young stars in the Rising Stars game All-Star Weekend as an NBA player. Now, I want to talk about something that all the leagues have to start doing. Yeah, that was a funny moment because Jae'Sean Tate, obviously, Rising Stars has, now that it's not rookie or sophomore anymore, you don't really have to be young. They're not really looking at the guys. It's just who's a rising star in the league, and Jae'Sean Tate fits under that. But anyways, something that I talked about before show with my guy Splash is the idea of getting creative. Like these sports leagues have some of the 50 or 100, whatever you want to say, best athletes at that sport in the world. These guys are able to do things within their sports that no one else on the planet can do. So you're telling me that you can't come up over the entire season, you can't come up with 5 to 10 events that showcase the player's skills? Like you see it in the quarterback challenge with the Pro Bowl. You see it in the thing with Tyreek Hill, the race where even though he didn't try, that was a fun race to get things going. You got to get creative. And that's what the NBA tried to do with the Clorox Clutch Challenge in between games 2 and 3 of the Rising Charge Challenge. And that was pretty cool. They split 8 guys into 4 teams. And they had teams of 2, and they pretty much had guys go around the court shooting from different iconic spots. So they had Ray Allen's corner 3 as a spot. They had Magic Johnson's finals hook shot as a spot. All these different things, and each of these spots are worth a different number of points. And then what they had them do was shoot in a clutch challenge with time counting down and see who could get the most points. It's things like this that we love to see. Little teamwork between guys that might not have been teamed up before because they obviously don't play together or aren't even in the same conference. These are the things that you like to see and get creative. And that's what All-Star Weekend is all about. Now let's get to something that the All-Star Weekend did not do well. Not necessarily to their fault, but that's the dunk contest. The dunk contest, not for my generation, But for our parents and people out there that grew up watching Dominique and Vince Carter do crazy things with the ball, that dunk contest must have been some of the most painful stuff to watch on TV in a long time. And it starts with the attempt structure. And you see it perfectly right there. Like you see Shaq, video camera out, whoo! And then you see him as an old man snoring on the sideline. But it starts with the attempt structure. They did something this year that I think they incorporated about a year or two ago, which is that they don't count a dunk as an attempt unless the ball goes up in the air. Now, I understand what they're trying to do here. Some guys like to throw it up to themselves and let it bounce on the ground. And if it's not a good throw, they want to bring it back and they don't want that to count as an attempt. That's fine. Some guys even jump up and just try to assess, see where they are. That's fine too. But if a guy goes up off 2 feet or one with the ball in his hands and then loses the ball, that has to count as an attempt. And we saw Jalen Green do that 10 times. And we're really going to let these guys for 10 minutes run back and forth from the rim to the three-point line just to try to make the dunk on the 100th attempt? It makes no sense. And you have to feel bad for a guy like Jalen Green because there's not much else he can do. Like, he's just going to keep trying to make the dunk. Some guys obviously end up pussing out and go for like a easy one-hander after they miss 10 in a row. But I really feel bad for him because there's nothing you can do in that situation to get out of it. He is unquestionably one of the best dunkers in the NBA. So it's just unfortunate that he didn't have a good showing. But now I'm going to shout out my guy, Obi Toppin, who did win the dunk contest. And I assume if it was anyone but a Knicks player, we would have heard about it more. But people love to hate on the Knicks. But that's all right. But I have to agree with something Obi Toppin said post-game. And fans across the world have to get this in their heads so they understand this going forward. Not every single dunk contest can be compared to Zach LaVine versus Aaron Gordon. So stop expecting that every year. What we saw those two guys do was not human. It doesn't happen. It rarely happens one guy a year in the dunk contest, let alone two battling it out. So I don't want to hear you guys complaining or tweeting videos of Aaron Gordon going under the legs over the mascot on the Swagway and Zach LaVine doing between the legs at the free throw line. Those dudes aren't human. You cannot expect every guy in the league to do that. But you got to give a guy like Obi Toppin credit. He went for a dunk that I hadn't seen before in the dunk contest where he threw it off the backboard, caught it again, and then dunked it. Like, that's not easy to do. We're not going to act like that's something that you just skip over. Splash, do not talk to me about Serge Ibaka being the best dunker. That is blasphemous. I will go watch whatever clip you want me to go watch back later, but that is blasphemous. The other thing that Splash put up on the screen there for a second and showed a hypothetical dunk contest between guys like Anthony Edwards, Ja, and Zion. And that's really what it takes. But we should not be looking forward to that. A guy like LeBron James, who single-handedly has a highlight reel of hours of his best dunks from when he was 18 years old, 19 years old, 20, 21, 22, every single year, counting up now until he's 37, still throwing down right-hand tomahawks. He's never been in it. So why do you expect other guys who have less athleticism, less hype around them, and less advantages to do the dunk contest than LeBron when he didn't even do it? Now, am I telling you a guy like Ja or Zion will never do it? No. But when you see guys like Aaron Gordon come out and say that they got snubbed, I should say. I don't know why I said snubbed. If they got snubbed, I don't understand. Why would a guy like Ja risk his dunk reputation to come put out 450 overall dunks that get graded as 46 and he loses? It makes no sense to him. And unless they add some type of incentive above some small amount of money, no guy's really going to do it unless it's a guy like Obi Toppin who just wants to do it for fun or has been looking forward to it for years. Because it's not worth the embarrassment. But man, how fun would it be to see Miles Bridges, Anthony Edwards, Ja, and Zion go flying? Like, that's what we need to see. That would get ratings. It would get everything. And it's what we're missing. Because even though some of the best dunkers in the league aren't the marquee talents, like a few years ago, we had a guy like Hamidou Diallo in there. Some of these guys aren't the best players in the league. That being said, some of the best players in the league are the most athletic. And those are the guys we have to try to find a way to get into the competition. Now on to the actual All-Star game itself. And that would be Steph Curry. This man is an absolute god. How do you hit 16 threes in a game? When you have 20 of the other best players in the sport marveling at what someone just did on the court, that's when you truly know that it is special. That picture right there brought me more joy than any picture I've seen in the past year. seeing Dwayne Wade, Allen Iverson, Reggie Miller, three of the NBA's all-time best players, seeing them react to a Steph Curry three in the way that they did, it was representative of me. It was representative of Warriors and NBA fans around the country. And it really just showed you how special it is to watch a guy like Steph go down the court, pull up from anywhere, and just turn around before it even goes in. That picture, oh my God, I'm getting chills now thinking about it. I'm going to go back and retweet it and like it 2 more times on Twitter after this. And I love Anthony Davis, who is currently the NBA's all-time leader in single-game points in an All-Star game with 52. But what Steph did to score 50 is so much more impressive than AD, because AD was hitting dunks and layups with no defense. Steph, even with no defense, was hitting threes from half court and turning around. Those are not guaranteed to go in. So he did choke the record, to be honest, because I think he missed 5 or 6 threes in a row there at the end, which would have given him the record. So I don't blame AD, and Steph does not deserve the record. That being said, what he did was ridiculous. I expect him to try to parlay that into some stuff going out of the All-Star game. And I expect him to be just as good as he was coming in, because he really is one of the more fun players to watch. And I can't think of one player in my life outside of maybe Carmelo Anthony that I would rather watch go off and not miss a shot in a game, because Steph is truly incredible. Now, coming out of the All-Star break, who will move up and who will move down? As this season closes in, down the stretch, coming out of the All-Star break, I really just want to mention 4 teams. Now, these are not the only 4 contenders. Let me make that clear. But these 4 teams are the teams that, in my eyes, if they play their cards right, have the best shot at a title down the stretch, / have the easiest route to fall out of contention down the stretch. Thank you, Nick. Shout out to Randall jersey. Got it up there so it's not just an empty background. We'll get some more stuff there up there as the weeks go on. But yeah, had to spice it up a little bit. So those 4 teams are the Warriors, Nets, the Sixers, and the Suns. And once again, that does not mean the Heat and the Bucks aren't contenders. I just think they have less possible variance in their road to the playoffs or the chip. And that's why I'm going to mention these other teams. So starting with the Warriors. They still are not healthy. Draymond Green has been dealing with back issues. Iguodala hasn't played consecutive games since early this season. And Wiseman, the golden boy, the number 2 overall draft pick that franchise is cherishing almost more than Steph Curry himself, has not seen the court this season and just started 5-on-5 contact work, coming back from a torn meniscus ligament in his knee. We know how big men in the past have suffered. We know how guys like Greg Oden have suffered to get on the court. Guy like Zion, we're seeing it across the league. Guys that have early injury history, you have to watch out for. But as they try to get these guys back, a lot of the work is falling onto Steph. And not only Steph, but Klay Thompson too. And all of the stuff that falls onto Klay really ends up falling back onto Steph, because Klay also recently returned after 2 major surgeries. So they have to get healthy if they want to keep competing down the stretch, and I think they will. They blew out the Blazers last night, so it was a good start coming out of the All-Star break to them. Steph with 18 points and 14 assists. He had 10 assists at halftime. He could have had 20 if they started hitting down shots, but that's a story for another day. So the Warriors are going to come down to health. They're the most experienced team in the league by far. Steph, Klay, and Draymond have never, not one time, never lost a playoff series in which all 3 of them played every game. So if they can get healthy, they're the favorite. Watch out for them. The next 2 teams I'm going to talk about together, and that's the Nets and the Sixers, because to me, they're in the exact same position right now. Both teams coming into the season with championship aspirations, and both teams found themselves nearing the trade deadline with a guy who they believed could help them compete, but wasn't actually playing. For the Nets, that was a guy like Kyrie Irving who wasn't playing because of the mandate, but it was unclear at the time they had another disgruntled star in James Harden. And for the Sixers, it was obviously Ben Simmons, who went completely AWOL after having 2 of the worst choke jobs in NBA history. The reason why I find both of these teams in a similar situation is because it's not going to be up to what they've done in the past, because none of that matters anymore. They have entirely new rosters. It's going to be up to whether or not both teams can establish a rhythm in these next week before the playoffs. If they figure out the new rotations, Embiid, Harden, Maxey, they should be incredible to watch. And that trio is going to debut tonight at 8 p.m. against the Timberwolves. Now, as news came in this week about the vaccine mandate supposedly being lifted soon, KD, Kyrie, and Ben Simmons in Brooklyn, surrounded by the shooting of Steph Curry, Joe Harris, and Patty Mills, they should also be able to compete against anyone. So let me say it again. The key is going to be building rhythm. The key is going to be figuring out which 9-10 man rotation you're going to lean on as the games get later. as the games get more important, as seeding starts to become more clear. These are the things you have to figure out, because without any consistency, without any rhythm, you cannot win an NBA championship. And for that same reason is why the last team I'm going to talk about in this is the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns have been the most consistent runaway team in the league now, pretty much since the start of the season. Now, while that's objectively a good thing for them, and it's pretty refreshing for Suns fans, as they've sucked for a bunch of years now, going back to the Charles Barkley, or I should say the Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire era, But that's the Suns. It's objectively a good thing. They've only had a few fourth quarter battles, but they haven't really been tested so much this season. So the thing for the Suns is, it's not about changing anything. The key for them is actually going to be changing nothing, keeping everything the same, and seeing if they can keep that sustained success that they saw last season, that they saw the final 8 games in the bubble, that they saw last season in the playoffs. Obviously, they couldn't get the job done in the finals, but if they can continue this success through the regular season, continue to let their young guys develop, continue to get more time for this rotation that we've already seen now 2 straight seasons in a row be dominant. If they can continue to do that, I think they'll be able to show it off at the biggest stage, and I think they can get back to that point. Thank you, Splash, for putting that up on the screen, because we need to talk about Devin Booker. Devin Booker is incredible. What he's been doing in these past few games without Chris Paul has been marvelous. His assist numbers have been up. His playmaking has been better. Devin Booker overall has looked like the type of player that we expected him to be when he dropped 70 points on the Celtics 4 years ago. And that is why Devin Booker is one of my favorite players to watch across the entire league. It's not even close. The dude shows up every night. And as you see, they're 5-0 without Chris Paul since he became a Sun. And that falls on no other than number 1 on the Suns, Devin Booker. That is a hooper right there. And speaking of hoopers, let's move on to Hooper of the Day. Point Book. You're right, Chandler. That's Point Book right there. But let's move on to the Hoopers of the Day. Now, starting off is a guy who some of you might be surprised to see him on here, because compared to some of the other guys in the league, he does get some love. But that'll be Pascal Siakam. Now, he's averaging 22 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists on the season, just 3 years after winning Most Improved Player. Now, I understand that because of the Most Improved Player, it makes sense that people haven't been fast to jump on the Siakam train this year or even last year. But that being said, everything outside of his point total is up, including rebounds and assists. And he's a guy that does deserve more love, because like I said, he might get more love than some of the other guys in the league, seeing as he was a Most Improved Player. He has had an All-Star appearance. That being said, Pascal Siakam is incredible. What they've figured out to do and how they've used him alongside Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent is awesome to see. How they've tried developing Scotty Barnes in a similar role is awesome to see. So Pascal Siakam is a guy who you cannot let escape your head, and he could be a potential trade target in the coming years, because a lot of teams can use the versatility at the forward and wing position that Pascal Siakam provides. So I would look out for him. He's incredible, and he's that dude. And you see right there, a guy like Chris Middleton, he was named an All-Star over Siakam. Is that because of bias? Is it because he's leading on one of the leading teams in the East in the Bucks with Giannis? Is it because they just won the finals? Who knows? I love Chris Middleton, but Pascal Siakam is that dude. Now moving on to a completely different type of player, completely different career-wise than Pascal. This is a young dude who quickly went from one of my absolute most hated players in the league to one of my favorites, and that's Desmond Bane, a member of the Memphis Grizzlies. Some people are calling him the next Klay Thompson. It takes a different breed of player, a different breed of athlete, and really a different breed of human to come into Golden State knowing that you're going up against a top 2 point guard of all time, a top 10 shooting guard of all time, maybe, and one of the best coaches ever. And not only do you go into Golden State and play incredible basketball and beat the Warriors, but you go in there trash talking them as you do it. This is a team that has Steph Curry and Draymond Green. Draymond specifically takes no shit from anyone. And this is the type of guy that Desmond Bane is looking in the eyes and speaking his stuff on. Not only that, he's going to hoop, he's going to talk trash, and he's going to pick you up at 94 feet, all while hitting threes in your grill all day. He's becoming a hooper, And if he keeps shooting 42% on three on 7 attempts a game, as he has now for over 2 seasons in the league, you are going to be hearing his name for a long time because there is only room for improvement when you look at Desmond Bane. We got a shout out from Evan Friedman with a super sticker. No way, Evan himself, my absolute boy, one of the smartest NFL fans you will find out there, but he is terrible at Madden. Don't tell him I said that. But thank you for the super sticker, Evan. If you have any questions, be sure to throw that in chat and I'll get to them. But now I'm ready for one of my most exciting Hooper of the Day shout-outs that I've seen yet. Now, this is the most exciting shout-out because he's not a Hooper. Or I should say, he's not a Hooper anymore. He was a Hooper, and that's Ty Lue. Now, Ty Lue deserves this shout-out perhaps more than any other one person in the entire NBA. At this point, if you don't know what Ty Lue brings as a coach, you are not paying attention to the games, and you really just don't watch the games in basketball. After leading his team to 2 3-1 comebacks in the same playoffs without his best player, the Clippers find themselves again battling through a regular season in which they struggle with injuries. However, this time, not only, say our record, Evan. All right, Evan has beaten me, but that's another time for another day. After leading his team to 2 3-1 comebacks, he now finds himself without Paul George and without Kawhi Leonard. His best player is Reggie Jackson. So, you ask me, shouldn't a team without their 2 best players, who also make up 50% of their Hall cap space, suck? Well, if they didn't have Ty Lue, they probably would suck. This team is being led by 12 different guys scoring 8+ points a game. Let me say that again. 12 guys on this team are combining to score 96 points a game. When you think about the fact that some of the teams in the NBA only run 9 and 10 man lineups, but the Clippers have 12 guys averaging 8 points a game, 7 guys in double figures, that doesn't happen. And it can't happen unless you have a guy like Ty Lue that can get every single player to buy in. He has to be the coach of the year to me. And I think it's going to be one of the most interesting situations in NBA history in terms of the coach of the year because the Clippers are not at the top of the conference. Today, the Clippers are actually a game below 500, 8th in the West. So I don't think he will get coach of the year realistically, but is there a single coach in the NBA out of the 30 teams that is getting more out of their guys? Absolutely not. And I'm putting this on the record right now. I will make a U Stadium take about it later today. If Kawhi and Paul George get healthy and they can add them into this core, the Los Angeles Clippers will open next season as the Vegas betting favorites to win it all. It will happen. And Evan points it out like that. Having a player like LeBron has to improve a coach, and I think it does 100%, Evan. You see all the guys in NBA history in terms of the best coaches ever had the best talent. Now, that is no mistake. Obviously, the coaches don't play. You see Phil Jackson there with Scottie and Jordan. You see Phil Jackson with guys like Shaq and Kobe. That being said, I think what Evan's trying to point out, having the chance to work with an all-time great player, to learn what it's like to control that guy's ego, to learn what it's like to help those guys fit in and develop that guy around the role players can only help a coach. So for a guy like Ty Lue to get that championship experience with LeBron and now see what it's like to try to win without LeBron, but while also having 2 of the marquee stars in the league, it has to help him out. And I think a lot of coaches around the league could improve and could get better, like Evan said, from having the experience to play with an all-time great who knows how to win and knows how to get the job done. So Ty Lue, this man deserves every single form of praise he could possibly get. And I'm just happy that now, having a podcast, I have the ability to shout him out. And hopefully I'll post a clip later and other people will see what he's doing because he's incredible. Now let's move on to the All-NBA debate. Now, this is something that I'm going to prepare for next week, so we're not going to get too heavy into it now. But I just have to talk about a few of my thoughts on the matter really fast and what they have to change. And once again, we'll get more into it next week, so be prepared for that. But they have to change the format of how All-NBA not only gets voted on, but how it works in principle. It cannot be tied to money. The fact that media members vote on NBA players and whether or not they finish as the best players in the league, and that is tied to how much money is in those guys' paycheck, is blasphemous. Now, let me be clear about my complaints on the award. The issue is, as of today, the awards work based on position. They vote for guards, they vote for forwards, and then they vote for centers. As of right now, The two of the four best players in the NBA are Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid. Both of those guys play at the center position. In the NBA today, positions are flowing, so there's not really centers, but they are both the big men of their team. Now, you are telling me that just because the way All-NBA is structured, two of the best four players in the game can't make All-NBA team, meaning that two of the best players in the NBA can't sign as big of contracts as their peers? Is that not ridiculous to anyone else? Shouldn't it just be the best 15 players or the best 10 players, whatever you want to say, make up the All-NBA teams? Shout out Yankees videos. Thank you for tuning in. But I don't understand it to me. Someone has to explain it. Why would it matter? If we're talking about the All-NBA first team, why would it matter what position they are? We could talk about the All-NBA guard first team, and that's another story. We could talk about the forward first team. That's a different story. If you want to split it up by position, that's fine. Give each position their own category. But you can't have guys get snubbed like this. It doesn't make any sense, especially when it's tied to money and it's something that's so easily fixable. It's one thing if we're here talking about a rule change or talking about something that affects regular season play. All-NBA is an award. It should be a supplementary thing that makes the players' lives better, not hurts them. So that's something that has to change. And just to give you two hints in here, I gave you the example with Jokic and Embiid, but now you have an example with DeMar DeRozan. Both of the guard spots are going to be taken in the All-NBA teams this year. That's clear as day. And the center spot's taken between either Jokic or Embiid. So that pretty much leaves you with two forward spots. LeBron, and is DeRozan going to sneak in there? Who else is going to get that look? Because DeRozan, in the past 10 games, or I should say the past 8 games, because that's what the record actually is, he has had 35-plus points, shooting 50% or better from the field in 8-plus games. You know who never did that? Wilt Chamberlain. You know who never did that? Michael Jordan. You know who never did that? Kobe Bryant. You know who has done that? DeMar DeRozan. This guy deserves to be All-NBA first team if he keeps playing like this. And if he gets snubbed because of the format of the award, I am going to be livid. DeMar DeRozan should be livid. And that's something that has to change. Now let's move on again. And I saved this towards the end because I didn't want to have energy in me when I did it. Because if I did this to start the podcast, I might have had to end it early. I might have lost my voice screaming about it. But what is wrong with the New York Knicks? I sat on this podcast for the first 2 weeks and told you it was on Julius Randle. I didn't solely blame it on him. Let's make that clear. He wasn't the only reason. But I told you, I was like, listen, we got to get Julius playing better. He's not playing great. He's been struggling. The body language sucks. We have to get him playing better. And guess what he did? He started playing better. The past 5 games, shout out Craig, thank you, whoever that is, appreciate the kind words. He started playing better. The dude's averaging pretty much 30 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 assists over his past 10 games, and we still can't win. Do you know what that tells me? That tells me there is something intrinsically wrong with the coaching staff and the philosophy of this New York Knicks team. If your best player is hooping at levels that earned him most improved player, that earned him a spot on the All-NBA team, and you're still struggling to put together wins, it's on the coaching staff. And listen, minutes before I started this podcast, D Rose announced that he's having a minor procedure on his right ankle. So that means it's going to happen. What we all complained about over All-Star break, what we complained about the past 2 weeks of the season, it's going to happen. Alec Burks will be starting at point guard. It doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what anyone says. Tibbs has made his mind up. And I strongly believe that if Tom Thibodeau runs the same style of basketball with the same starting lineup and we keep losing, he's gone. And he should be. And if he's not gone, us Knicks fans are going to rage so loud, it will be unbearable. I said it once and I'll say it again. Thibodeau was the perfect coach. And I genuinely mean that. He was the perfect coach to come into New York and set the tone and give us an identity and move us away from tanking basketball. But now it is time to go. He still has learned nothing from Chicago or Minnesota. He's still the same basketball-loving stickler that self-admittedly will never be married because it would take away his time from the game. Do you understand what I just said out loud? Tom Thibodeau publicly mentioned that he is not going to get married because it would take away the love for basketball. Now, maybe that's why he has never figured it out as a coach in this league. Maybe he needs someone to come home to every night telling him how annoying he is or telling him his problems. Maybe that's what Tom Thibodeau needs. All I'm saying is it hasn't been working. You leave RJ Barrett on the floor in a game that is over, and he gets hurt with less than 20 seconds left. How can you not learn from this stuff? You have Derrick Rose on your roster, a former MVP candidate who you hurt his knee. I shouldn't say you, who you left on the court in the final minute to hurt his knee, sitting on the team with you, and you let it happen again to a young guard. It's inexcusable. And the Knicks have to move forward from it, or they'll never do anything. Shout out, John. Appreciate it. I'm going to keep grinding. This is going to be an every week thing, and we're just getting started. Because, listen, coming out of the All-Star break, it's not over for this Knicks team. The East is fascinating, and we're pretty lucky because of that. We're in 12th place right now. We are 25-34, yet we are only 13 and a half games out of the first seed. To put that into context for you, the 12th seed in the West right now is the New Orleans Pelicans. They are 26 games out of first. They are twice as many games out of first. Now, are the Knicks going to finish in first? No. But right now, the Knicks are 9 games out of the 6th seed. Right now, the Knicks are 5 games out of the 8th seed. So does this Knicks team have a chance to make the play-in tournament? 100% they do. And that's why I will be so frustrated. Me, along with Knicks fans around the world, will be so frustrated if Tibbs keeps up this BS. Because we're going to lose, and we don't have to lose. We have a chance to play important basketball down the stretch in the playoffs. And that's all I want to see. I don't want to see my team go back to tanking. And that's all I ask for. And I hope James Dolan, I hope Worldwide West, I hope Leon Rose, I hope that they know that. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters to me. As long as they know that, as long as they're going forward, that's all that matters. And when I tell you that picture splash of SpongeBob is going to be me tonight, I will have Evan, shout out Evan again, I will have Evan take a picture of me. If I see Alec Burks dribbling the ball up the court in the first half, this is going to be me. I'm going to stay there like this with my mouth open the whole game. And I'm going to sit there the entire game until I have to watch Alex Burks play a position that he's never played in his entire NBA career. We're talking about a veteran right now. We're talking about an NBA veteran, Alec Burks, who, not to say, is one of the best shot creators off the bench in the league, but not as a point guard, not as a distributor, not as a facilitator. I can't talk about it anymore. Get it out of my face. Let's move on to another depressing team of mine, another team that has caused me more pain than joy in the New York Mets. If I told you 6 months ago that the New York Mets would sign a top 5 pitcher in baseball, someone who arguably had a Hall of Fame pitcher who arguably had his best season of his career the previous year. If I told you that the Mets were going to sign them and then shortly after the first lockout in 30 years would occur, would you have believed me? I would have. I would have believed myself. The amount of things the Mets figure out how to do, it doesn't make sense. Last year, you have Jacob deGrom, MVP candidate, playing the best ball we've seen from a pitcher literally since Bob Gibson's season, and he gets hurt. And no one knows why he's hurt, but something in his arm hurts. Something in his arm hurts. We figure it out. And now this season, what happens? Oh, new owner, Steve Cohen, spends money, great. And what happens? Lockout. Best 1-2 punch at the pitcher position in baseball, perhaps that we've seen in the past 5 seasons, maybe since Kershaw, Bauer, and then we're healthy over in LA. It's ridiculous. And now there's a lockout, and we're not even going to see them get to play. If I miss Scherzer and DeGrom back-to-back starts because the owners can't figure out $1 million difference on a rookie scale contract, you're never going to hear the end of it. I'm going to be talking about it for the rest of my life. I'm never going to forget it, and it's unexcusable. Garrett Cole has now become the 3rd best pitcher in New York, and we won't even get to see it happen. I won't even get to make fun of my Yankee friends, my Yankee fan friends, I should say. It won't even get to happen. And that's not all that's embarrassing with the Mets. Now you have Marcus Strowman, a guy who, let me be clear, I made some mistakes regarding Marcus Strowman in the past in terms of my blind support for him. And I tend to do that a lot with my teams. I tend to do that a lot and blind myself. And I always think that these guys are just going to be so great for us and there's going to be no issues and it's all going to be dandelions and roses coming into New York market. But I'm always wrong time and time again. because Strowman, a guy who proved he was able to pitch through the bright lights of New York, since leaving now seems to hate the place. And every single Mets fan was racist. Now, let me be clear. I cannot pretend to understand what Marcus Strowman goes through as an African-American athlete in today's world. The DMs and the comments he must receive, I can't even explain. And my heart truly does go out to him and his family and all the other players alike that have to deal with that. That being said, it does not take me to tell you that not every Mets fan is like that. Not every Mets fan is like that, Marcus Strowman. The amount of Mets fans, including myself, including a lot of the radio hosts in this station that wished you well going forward. You yourself stated when you left this team that you would have loved to resign here. And you're good enough to pitch in the front of the bright lights. But now you go somewhere else and you slam the organization. I'm beyond thankful I'm gone from that organization. That horrid organization. Like, it's truly ridiculous. And I want to be clear. I understand what I'm saying about Strowman, and it's why I'm being very careful with my words, because I do understand what it's, or I'm not going to pretend to understand, but I do understand that he faces difficulties that I do not face and other people like me do not face. That being said, you can't come out calling everyone racist just because you're on a new team and you got a few comments. It can't happen. So I'm disappointed in Strowman for doing that. I'm still a fan of yours, Marcus Strowman. I love watching you pitch. There are not 3 guys in the league I would rather see on the mound. There are not 3 guys in the league that pitch with as much swag as you, where they get reposted by Pitching Ninja. You are like that. All I ask is that outside of the field, you have a little bit more time. Give us Mets fans and the fans around the league a little bit more just to prove to you that we're not all bad guys and we're not all idiots and we're not all terrible fans and we're not all racists. And some of us just love the game of baseball and some of us love watching you pitch and just really wanted to be passionate about you returning in a Mets jersey, and that didn't work out. So I personally wish Marcus Strowman the best going forward. I will not be as blind in my support of him as I was in the past. That being said, comments like this do make me worried. They very well do make me worried. If Strowman's coming out and saying that the front office knew about certain things said to him and didn't do anything to stop it or do anything publicly to try to control the narrative, that is a problem. Now, I'm not sure if guys should be fired for that. I'm not sure really what a GM can do about thousands of other people on social media using their profiles to come at Marcus Strowman. I'm not really sure what he wanted the Mets to do about that. But overall, it's a bad situation. And I don't understand why we have to be throwing threats around entire fan bases when we see what's going around the world right now. So the MLB lockout, they have to figure this out because I don't want to miss any games because of this. I don't want to see any of this. And it doesn't make sense to me how the players and owners can't figure out how to put a team on the field and play baseball. I don't know what's so hard about it. I really don't. It's really annoying to me. I don't understand. It doesn't make sense. How much longer can you talk about the same issues for the same days? And how much longer can you not come to a conclusion? Like, what are these issues really about? How important can they be? Ryan, relax. The Metropolitans. Isn't that weird how sometimes I call you Ryan, sometimes I call you Splash, whatever I see first. But the Mets, man, the Mets. Why did this have to happen now? Why could my captain himself, why could David Wright not be on the team still? Why can I not be watching David Wright over at third base control the locker room, make sure no tempers are flaring, make sure the Mets are playing good baseball? Why can't I have my guy Daniel Murphy, one of the best Mets playoff performers ever? What happened to my New York Mets, man? What happened to them? I love the team, but what happened? And what happened with sports? Why can we not figure this out? More money is being generated than ever before, literally, for the players and owners. Yet now is the time when we get into arguments. Are you kidding me? Can you please figure it out? Please, can you please figure it out? And Splash, you mentioned it. The biggest problem with the Mets, not even close, has been the hitting with runners in scoring position. Now, if I'm not mistaken, 2 seasons ago, we led the league in batting average, or we were top 3 in batting average, and we were last with hitting and running in scorer's position. So the Mets issues are clear. If anyone has any comments in the chat, I know I talked a lot today. I didn't get to read much. I'm sorry about that, but I had a lot on my mind. There was a lot going on with the All-Star break and MLB and everything going on. So if you have any specific questions in chat, be sure to mention those now, and I'll be sure to get to that. But otherwise, make sure to like the stream, subscribe to the channel, and follow U Stadium on Twitter and Instagram. And follow me over at Twitter because we're going to get a lot to get to. tonight in the NBA, there's some good games. Obviously, we got the debut, as I mentioned, of Harden, Ben Simmons, and Embiid against the Timberwolves. And that's going to be a pretty interesting matchup because if you look at it on paper, that's a clash of big threes right there. You have you have Harden, Embiid, and did I say Ben Simmons before? I meant Tyrese Maxey. You have Harden, Tyrese Maxey, and Embiid versus a big three of D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, and KarlAnthony Towns. So it's kind of like a 2-guard, 1-big matchup there tonight. And that's going to be awesome to see because the Timberwolves have been rolling. The Sixers were looking good coming out of the break. So that's going to be an awesome game for them to start it off. You obviously also have the Knicks facing the Heat tonight, and that's a national game on ESPN. So Julius will probably show up, but we'll probably lose by 50, and the whole world will be clowning us on Twitter. And I'll have to just crawl away into my sweatshirt and go the night away scrolling Twitter, not being able to defend myself because of everyone coming at the Knicks. So it sucks to be a New York sports fan sometimes. We still are the best fans in the world because we never give up. But that being said, it really makes you think. And I do blame this on my dad directly. I don't think he's still listening because he has a show to do right now on a slightly bigger network. But that being said, why couldn't I have been a Yankees fan? Why couldn't I have been a Giants fan? I love the Jets. I love the Mets and the Knicks. I will never change. But life would be so much easier if I could have a Super Bowl ring on. 2 right now, actually. If I could have celebrated Mario Manningham or David Tyree. If I could have celebrated Derek Jeter and A-Rod and Andy Pettitte and Mariano Rivera and Jorge Posada. If I could have enjoyed and celebrated these guys like they were my own, I don't know what life would look like right now. It would have been a much easier existence. That being said, I will never switch. I am a New York Jets, Mets, Knicks, and Rangers. Do not forget the Rangers. You saw that 4-1 win. Woo! Igor, give him the trophy now, baby. But anyways, New York fans, better than anyone else. We'll be back with a special guest next Friday to talk about the Jets and who they might be looking to select with their picks in this year's draft. They have some great ones. So be tuned for 3 o'clock next Friday. All New York sports coming. We got everything coming out of the All-Star break again. Look forward to the NFL season. We'll see if there's any news on the MLB lockout. But otherwise, go Knicks, go Rangers, go Jets, go Mets. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. Make sure go like U Stadium. Go follow me on Twitter. And tune in tonight. Got a great night of sports. And as always, I'm Sonny Carton. And thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Sonny Carton Show. Lastly, Tim Thibodeau, young guys. I've said that before. I mean, he kills the young guys. We draft them. He doesn't play them. It hurts their confidence. It stunts their growth. Obi Toppin plays 8 minutes a game some nights, even though he's a high-flying dunker. It doesn't make sense. You want to see those guys on the court. And it just doesn't happen. And that's why I said earlier, Tibbs needs to go. So sorry for doing this again. But as always, I'm Sonny Carton. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Sonny Carton Show. Thank you, Splash, for being the best producer out there. No one does it like him. This man is more prepared than anyone else. So thank you. I appreciate it. And as always, I'm Sonny Carton. Have a great one. See you next Friday.